Alright, sorry, that one got weirdly cut off. We're on page 30, starting at most shows. Most shows were broadcast live, meaning the audience saw them at the same time they were being performed in the studio. By the mid-1960s, color television sets began outselling black and white ones. 32-33. After watching a single show, Fred made a big decision. He told his parents that he wasn't going to the seminary after all. Instead, he was going to look for a job in the television business. They were surprised, not sure Fred had thought things through. "You've never even seen it," they told him. "Well, I've seen enough of it here that I'd like to try," replied Fred. He knew he was doing the right thing. Chapter 4, In the Studio. After he graduated college in 1951, Fred moved to New York City where he applied for a job at NBC. The television network needed an assistant producer to work on several of its music programs, and Fred had a degree in music. That was a good fit, and he was hired. Although the job sounded important at first, Fred mostly served coffee and ran errands. He learned how to deal with many different kinds of people. Once he was yelled at for bringing someone the wrong drink. Fred remembered that feeling. He might never be famous or important, but he would always try to treat people well. Before long, Fred got promoted to the job of floor manager. He worked on several programs, like NBC Opera Theater, The Kate Smith Hour, The Gabby Hayes Show, and Your Hit Parade. As floor manager, Fred's job was to make sure everything ran smoothly. He was in charge of telling the crew, the people who worked behind the scenes, when to change sets. Page right here. He got the props the actors needed. Sometimes he needed a little help to get the red vase or the green parrot. Fred was colorblind, so he could not tell red from green. He also gave actors their cues to get on or off the stage. He was always looking at the clock, because everything was carefully timed. Since the shows aired live, there were no do-overs. Everyone had only one chance to get it right. 38-39. Of course, that didn't always happen. One time, Kate Smith was singing in front of a set painted to look like a farmhouse. When Fred thought the song was over, he told the crew to raise the set into the rafters over the stage. But he was too early. Kate wasn't finished yet. As the set went up, it looked to the audience like she was sinking lower and lower. Everyone knew there would be mistakes from time to time, though. Most people laughed about them. Fred also worked with the Western star Gabby Hayes, who had a show for children. Fred loved kids, and the two became friends. Television stars performed for thousands of people, and they couldn't even see them. Fred thought that must be hard. He asked Hayes how he did it. Hayes told him his secret. "Freddie," he said, "I think of one little buckaroo." He meant that he performed as if there were only one child in the audience. That made sense to Fred. People watching a movie or a play sat in an audience with a lot of other people. But when they watched TV, they did it in their homes. It was much more personal, like the show was playing just for them. Later, when Fred got in front of the camera himself, he always imagined talking to just one little buckaroo. 40 and 41. Gabby Hayes. Before he went into television, George "Gabby" Hayes was a popular movie actor who appeared in Western films in the 1930s and 1940s. The nickname Gabby came from a character that was created for him, Gabby Whittaker. In Hayes' movies, the star was usually a famous actor like Roy Rogers or John Wayne. Hayes usually played the loyal sidekick, who was often cranky but still a good-hearted friend. He was known for his funny expressions such as "you're darn tootin' and jumpin' J.O. shoppin'." Fred had made new friends in New York, but he missed Joanne Bird, his friend from college. She was still in Florida. Fred knew he wanted to spend the rest of his life with her. He wrote her a letter asking her to marry him. Joanne was so excited that she called him on the phone and accepted his proposal. They were married in 1952. Fred's career was going great. He was on his way up the ladder. Then yet again, Fred decided to make a sudden change. Chapter 5, page 42-43, The Children's Corner. Fred liked working as a floor manager at NBC, but he didn't think it was quite the right job for him. He dreamed of making music and creating television programs himself, not just managing what other people created. He heard that a new TV station, WQED, was starting up in Pittsburgh. Fred liked the idea of being near his hometown. Even more, he liked the idea that WQED was an educational station. WQED was operated by National Educational Television, NET, which became the Public Broadcasting Service, PBS, in 1970. As an educational station, WQED was created to serve many different viewers. There would be room for all kinds of shows, not just the pie-in-the-face kind. Fred's friends thought this plan was crazy. He already had a successful career in New York, and WQED wasn't even on the air yet. But Fred knew what he wanted. He and Joanne left New York for Pittsburgh in the fall of 1953. Fred was one of only 6 people hired at the news station. His job was to put together a schedule of programs. The station manager, Dorothy Daniel, thought some of WQED's programming should be for children. Fred volunteered for the job. This would give him a chance to create a new TV show, just like he'd always wanted. He teamed up with Josie Carey, who also worked at the station, to make an hour a day of children's programming. Their budget was only $30 per show, so they had to do something cheap. 44-45. They came up with the idea of a program called The Children's Corner. Josie would sing songs while Fred played the piano. In between, they would show short films. Commercial versus public television. It can be quite expensive to make television shows. In commercial television, advertisers buy small chunks of airtime, during which they put on commercials for their products. The TV station then uses money earned from commercials to create TV programs. Commercial stations air shows that they think will be popular. When more people watch the station, can charge more money for commercials. Public television stations do not air commercials. They make shows with money they get from the government, as well as donations from people and companies. Public television stations don't have to worry about what the most popular kinds of shows might be. They often take chances on a wider variety of programs. 46-47. WQED started its regular programming on April 5, 1954. The night before, Dorothy Daniel threw a party for the staff. Everyone got a small gift. Fred's was a puppet that looked like a tiger. That was a perfect gift for him, since he had loved to play with puppets as a child. He named it Daniel Striped Tiger, after Dorothy Daniel. The puppet gave Fred an idea. Why not use him on the children's corner? Part of the show's set was painted to look like a clock, and Fred cut a hole in the clock so Daniel could poke through from behind. Fred used a high, squeaky voice to make Daniel talk to Josie, who was in front of the set. The Striped Tiger was a hit. More puppets and more voices by Fred joined the cast later. 48-49. Putting on a live TV show kept everyone on their toes. As soon as Fred finished playing the piano for one scene, he had to dash across the stage to perform with the puppets. He started wearing sneakers at work so his footsteps would be quieter. He also kept his hands in his pockets to stop his change from jingling as he ran. Off stage, Fred's family was growing. He and Joanne had their first son, James, in 1959. Their second son, John, was born in 1961. On this page now. Being a father gave Fred first-hand experience with kids, but he wanted to know even more. He was interested in learning about young children's feelings. He wanted to understand why they thought and acted the way they did. He took classes in child development at the University of Pittsburgh and paid close attention to how children behaved. Fred had also not forgotten about his goal of becoming a minister. He enrolled at Western Theological Seminary in Pittsburgh and took classes during his lunch hour. He finished school there in 1962. By then, Fred had been at WQED for almost 10 years. Then, one day, he got an important call. It was from the director of children's programming for a TV station in Canada. The director wanted Fred to move to Canada to create an entirely new show for preschool children. Fred thought it was a great opportunity. He said yes. Chapter 6, Welcome to the Neighborhood. When Fred arrived in Canada, he got a surprise. The programming director knew Fred personally. He'd seen him talk to children, and he thought Fred was great at it. So he wanted Fred to appear on the show, not just work the puppets off stage. Fred had never performed on camera, but he agreed to try. The new show would even be named after him. It was called Mr. Rogers. The program was similar to the Children's Corner, with lots of music and a cast of puppets. It was a success, but after about a year, Fred was ready to come home. James and John would be starting school soon, and he and Joanne wanted to settle in Pittsburgh. Joanne was busy with their sons, but when she had time, she played piano concerts and gave lessons. Fred went back to WQED, where he turned Mr. Rogers into Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. The new program went on the air in Pittsburgh in 1966, and it was quickly picked up to be shown on other stations. In 1967, Fred became a publicity appearance at a television station in Boston, Massachusetts. The organizers thought a few hundred people might come. They were shocked when thousands lined up around the block to meet Mr. Rogers. 54-55. By 1968, Fred split the title Mr. Rogers into 2 words, and Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood was airing all over the country. The first season was in black and white, but for the second season, Fred started taping the program in color. Next page. Each show began with a song Fred had written himself. "Won't you be my neighbor?" Fred sang. "I have always wanted to have a neighbor just like you. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? Won't you be my neighbor?" The answer was a big yes. Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood was becoming one of the most popular programs on public television. The program actually had 2 neighborhoods. One was very realistic. There Mr. Rogers lived in a comfortable home where friends could stop by to chat. There was also a pretend world, a royal kingdom called the Neighborhood of Make-Believe. The puppets lived there. A red toy trolley traveled between Mr. Rogers' living room and the castle in Make-Believe. When kids heard the trolley bell ring, they knew they were leaving one neighborhood and going to the other. 58-59. Fred paid attention to every detail of the show. He wrote all the episodes and songs himself, letting his personality shine through in different ways. Since he loved jazz, he hired a talented jazz musician, Johnny Costa, to play the music. The red trolley car looked like the one he had ridden as a child in Pittsburgh, and he invited guests who reflected his own interests from music to astronomy to the environment. The puppet characters in Make-Believe also reflected parts of Fred's personality and the people closest to him. Daniel Tiger was sweet and gentle. King Friday VIII liked to be King Friday X111 liked to be the person in charge. Fred felt that way sometimes too. Lady Elaine Fairchild was named for Fred's sister. She was the mischief maker of make-believe and loved to joke around, and Queen Sarah Saturday was a kind and wise person. Everyone knew her character was similar to Fred's wife, Joanne.